XR Communities has a prerequisite of having the hardware or having something that everyone could afford. So you're attracting a certain type of person. It can't be a recent graduate, or it can't be like an undergrad who is worried about how they're going to pay tuition. There's such a financial barrier getting into it. It's not very accessible, or it's not democratizing.
You're right. There is a natural barrier. I didn't even think about that. Whereas like AI is like 20 bucks a month. Yeah.
AI is like, yeah, it's very accessible.
It's a Big Mac meal.
And they already have the equipment. They just need community knowledge and people who are going to be just like them and willing to go geek out. You need money to keep things sustainable. It's like, that's the hard truth. This is the whole ecosystem. You could build something out of love. You could build a community out of love, a product out of love. But if you don't have that fuel to sustain you, you won't be there anymore. And you're only talking about the hardware. You're not talking about like installing Unity and then learning how to build these prototypes. You haven't even touched that.
And,
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, it's just after 10 years.
See, there's that question. How can you sustain your community when all the players in your ecosystem are changing too many things and creating so many barriers that you can't even sustain yourself?
And even if you had a community to combat that, everyone has different hardware. So I probably wouldn't show up if I knew that I don't have the latest hardware, or if I've switched from Quest to Apple, and then most of this community is Quest 3. So they might have great knowledge on Quest 3, but now that I'm working at Apple Vision Pro, they might not have that knowledge, and I've lost my community. Even I can be
Yeah,
in the same room with them.
it's too
I've
dependent
lost
on like a single thing.
it gets you into that individual mindset. Already that web of fractures makes it really hard to have a sustainable community.
If value is we all build with Oculus or we all build using Apple Vision Pro, and then all of a sudden you take those away, you have no shared values.
Whereas in AI, the process is the same. Even if it's Claude versus Open AI, the tools work virtually the same. What is your prompt? What was your prompt? What is your
Exactly.
output? If anything, it's additive. It actually continues to further bonding or building together that lead to innovation and accelerate
Yeah.
in a ways that XR kind of eats against itself because it doesn't have that.
If you think about it, capitalism loves fracturing. They will extract as much value from those fractured pieces. And after
Yeah.
they're done extracting, then they leave
What's left
behind just
behind?
the pieces.
Yeah. What's left behind is the
That's the formula.
Yeah, that's it. That's the death spiral. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Clarama. I've spent the past decade in emerging tech, including several years working in XR at both Meta and at Google. Before we dive in, I want to set a bit of context for this conversation. The first half, Neilda, an ecosystem architect, she's going to share her unconventional path to XR and how she went from that to building one of the fastest growing AI building communities in Ottawa. And when I say builder communities, I mean people who actually build every week, not just presentations or networking. So you're going to get insight into the lessons she's learned designing these ecosystems that sustain themselves without burning out, should you decide to start one yourself. In the second half, we're going to zoom out and we're going to ask a bigger question. Why is AI scaling so quickly, and why XR has struggled to maintain that same momentum? Because while VR meetups are not uncommon, spaces where people consistently build together are much more rare, and it often becomes the norm for XR developers to work in isolation. And more importantly, what role do builder communities play in scaling high-risk technologies, especially when it comes to feedback loops, use case discovery, and sustained innovation? One of those patterns we explore is whether at the individual level or at the institutional level, building in isolation or too competitively too early can slow things down. Shared ecosystems, on the other hand, seem to accelerate everything. This is a space I've seen evolve from the inside and the outside, and I'm really excited to explore the relationship between the platform and the communities that build on top of them. If you enjoy conversations like this, please like and subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments. With that, let's get into it. Nelda, thank you for joining.
Happy to be here.
Yay! So I'm really excited to talk about to have this conversation with you specifically about communities and the role that they play in innovation. Me and Nelda, we know each other. We went way back, like almost a decade now. Specifically, both met in XR. We're both entrepreneurs in the XR space. I was an indie developer. You were a designer. We bonded being part of Mozilla's XR Studio, where they invited women who work in XR and AI to build together inside the Mozilla venue space, which was on the Embarcadero Road with a beautiful view of the Bay Bridge.
Oh, it was
Um,
beautiful. I wish we could
yes.
go back.
Yes, it was amazing. We had access to the micro kitchen 24/7. We
Hot
were like,
Cheetos.
yeah. Anyways, those were really fun times. We spent many late nights because we had 24 hours there all the time. They were one of the few people who were there every day. So that was our fun time. And then we also bonded because I think you that had overlapped with the time that you also were part of Oculus Launchpad. And
Mm-hmm.
I had done Oculus Launchpad the year before. Go ahead, and I'm giving
Yeah.
everything, but what's your
No, all
story from there?
good.
Tell
All
me.
good. I am currently the Chief Ecosystem Officer at AGI Ventures Canada. But before
Mhm.
that, I was a UX designer turned VR startup founder turned operations, product, and ecosystem architect. It's definitely been quite a journey.
When you say ecosystem architect, how do you define ecosystem architect specifically?
Ecosystem architect means, in my case, builder ecosystems. It means like understanding the types of people that make up the builder's space and seeing the personalities, seeing the types of events that they have, seeing like what motivates them and seeing like what helps this community thrive and building initiatives, partnerships, strategies that activate the best parts of builders that help them progress in their projects, their knowledge, and their objectives. So it's all about identifying the types of people and how to introduce different types of people into the space that helps an entire industry function without burning out and
Yeah.
and becoming more of a, hey, we have an event, everybody disappearing afterwards.
Yeah. Okay, so you're literally in the business of it's almost like a casting director. Like you
Yes.
have there's a
Yes.
you have to figure out okay, who are the best like the builders that are going to work well. It sounds like you're also looking for soft skills, not just talent, like technical skills, but people who have the right holistic makeup, being
Yeah.
able to collaborate and work with each other and share ideas, but also have the passion and have the drive to
Yeah.
build something. And you create a space around them that
Mhm.
allows them to reach their best potential or for the equation to add up, basically.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
Now that you mentioned the
Yeah.
now that you mentioned, like, that analogy of, like, "Oh, you're kind of like the casting director." Maybe I could be more of like building the best builder community that achieves more and drives innovation and disrupts the status quo and grow and develop into, like, very like holistic, general, jack of all trades type of builders that make a bigger impact in the world, collaborating over individually. I suppose that's a TV show that I'm creating right now.
How do you feel like you would differentiate from someone who would, I don't know what the right word is, it's producer, but like for like a YC Combinator type of event,
Mm.
or
That would be assuming
is there
that
equivalent?
there is an objective of the
Okay.
community. So if you say an accelerator, for example, or a company, the objective of these communities would be to eventually get to the point where you're investing in them and they IPO or they exit. But for builder community, the ones that I'm building, the funnel could go from getting a job, it could go from just getting knowledge so that you are more well informed in your job, you get your next promotion, or help you finish your project, maybe get some funding, or become like a thought leader, or like
Mm,
even adopting a new technology. There's so many funnels in an ecosystem versus like a community for entrepreneurs because it's nice having like an entrepreneur way, but like builders is so broad. People have different interests.
okay, so you have a distinction between ecosystem and communities. You don't feel like they're the same. Is that right? Right?
They're different.
Or they are?
Communities,
They're different.
yeah.
Ah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that they are different, communities is just like one portion of an ecosystem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
you're thinking
this,
more broad, bigger than
yeah,
just a group of people in the same space.
yeah. And the
Got it.
different types of people, also, like the platforms, the technology that supports them,
Mm.
the visible roles, the invisible roles. I wrote a blog post about this, about what I've observed so far has been different types of roles in this ecosystem. So, for example, the visible roles, the connectors, the experimenters, the operators, the visionaries, the builders, the critics, the anchors, mediators, amplifiers, mentors, all of that. And then the invisible roles. Yeah, there's a huge list. And like the funders, the people who build the platforms, people who enforce.
I highly recommend everybody like to go and read this amazing, very thorough, very thoughtful article that Nelda put together. She breaks down what the right ingredients are for this ecosystem to build in terms of when you're thinking about builder community and people building together, how to make sure you're thinking about all these things so that way you can have a successful outcome. I'll put it in the link below. And this whole talk will be around her experience that led her up to being able to create this post recently that I felt was really inspiring. This is why I really wanted to have her, because I really think communities is so integral into the tech space. Like, this is how we create innovation, and something that I've seen amiss in the XR space as of late recently, something that I feel like probably has contributed to the lower morale that we might be seeing, or the existential crisis that we're all having in the space of XR and where are we going, is smaller sense of communities. And maybe there are Discord or communities and stuff like that, but this is something we're going to get to the bottom of in this talk, to try to understand the role of communities and how to build it, and what are the things that we could avoid if we want to build a healthy one, especially since I'm sure a lot of us have building communities and have seen some downfalls of some pretty high potential ones, and also to what to make sure we think of first. And so before we go into that one, like you shared, Nelda, your experience in San Francisco. And so tell me about how you ended up in Ottawa and why you started even thinking about ecosystems to begin with. Because like you said, it's going from being a designer to this entrepreneur space to now ecosystem architect. Like, tell me about that last leg.
Yeah. So I came to Ottawa because in 2019, my now husband was going to go to San Francisco to celebrate our birthdays together. And unfortunately, he missed his flight. It was a whole ordeal and wasn't able to come. So I ended up booking a flight to Ottawa for about 2 weeks. But a few days after I landed, the border shut down because of COVID. I ended up
Convenience.
here in Ottawa. But it actually ended up being a good thing in hindsight. I spend half of my time in San Francisco, half of my time in Ottawa. And when I'm in San Francisco, I'm energized by the events, the people, the ideas, all of that being shared. In Ottawa, I was looking for that space. So personally, my personal motivation was I want to bring San Francisco and the things that I enjoyed to Ottawa, and see if there are some people who had the similar mindset and also interested in going down this journey with me. And I found that through the AI community, and at that time called AI Tinkers Ottawa. So that's where my ecosystem architecture journey began in Canada, but I've been doing it for a really long time.
You were a leader, a UX leader at Sephora and at
Bank of America. So Bank of America, I was VP Interaction Design. It's where I led
wow.
the design for the first Apple Watch app that's back Bank of America. So that was pretty fun.
Whoa. Wait, so did you
Did I
do
ever
that
tell you
before
that?
Sephora?
Yeah,
I
I did that before Sephora.
What
Yeah,
year was that?
actually, I think it might have been 2015. So I guess like this is where I really started getting into, like the tech community and tech meetups and everything, because before I got into tech, I studied political science at UCLA and was working in sales as my first job in Los Angeles in broadcast technology. Going to networking events wasn't really a thing for me, but then when I switched my career to UX design, I knew I had to learn at such a rapid pace that I attended like multiple meetups every single week in San Francisco, like to the point where sometimes it's like 2 times a week, or I fill up my entire schedule and it would be up to 4 times a week. But going to all these different meetups and seeing like, what can I learn? What kind of people are there here? I just got to so many, to the point where I eventually got to the point where I'm like, oh, I could start my own. So I kind of did. But when I was at Bank of America, I was still in the let me check out the tech scene and tech meetups to see what they're about. And that is when I first started learning about wearables and Apple Watch, because Apple Watch was just starting to come, or like they just announced it was going to come out, but nobody's ever had one before. So because of this knowledge I was able to capture from all of these meetups during lunchtime at Bank of America, I remember like our entire team we had a pizza lunch, and there was this one person that nobody was sitting next to, and I was kind of like still a little new to the company. And I sat next to him and I started getting conversation. Like, hi, I'm Nelda. Nice to meet you. I don't think I've seen you here before. And then we started talking about wearables and Apple Watch and the latest technologies that were coming out here. And I started geeking out. And then little did I know that person that nobody was sitting next to was the EVP of digital. So I didn't talk to him with this level of like, I must impress you, give me a promotion. It was a very more like personal conversation. And then
transitions to passion, the like literal excitement.
exactly. It
Yeah.
navigated to that. So what
Yeah.
ended up happening, I think the next day or a few days after, but like my boss called me into his office and asked me like, oh, we're actually making an Apple Watch app and you seem to have a lot of knowledge about this technology. Would you be interested in getting involved? So because of those networking events, because of that knowledge, that like that drinking from the fire hose through just being there in person, talking to people, learning from like the people who were already building it, I became the design lead of this project and then ended up launching Bank of America's first Apple Watch app.
Wow. That is, look how communities work.
I know,
Like,
I know.
skills
You,
work.
you honestly
Networking
really
is
do not know what will come out of all these meetups and communities. All I know is you just put yourself in the rooms where so many of these things happen, especially if they're filled with the actual like builders and people who are making these things instead of just, gathering information.
Yeah.
And I
You
love
know,
that. I personally love that. I relate so
yeah.
hard.
This is what I love about that story too, because you didn't know his title. Do you think if you knew his title, that would have changed? One, would you have approached him? Two, would that have changed the nature of the conversation?
I would have been a little bit more self-conscious. I can't share that much passion in something with somebody I have to impress. I feel like sometimes I have to reel myself in when I share something I'm passionate about because it ends
Yeah.
up being a little too much. Like they really feel it though, but they can't take it.
Like I think there's something about, I feel like fear and passion, which is very heart centered, and fear very ego centered, is like oil and water a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're activated in that fear mode because of status or whatever, which all trigger like the ego stuff and identity and all that, I feel like it makes it hard for the passion to shine through. But what I loved about, and this is what we're going to be talking about in communities, there's something different for me. I never feel comfortable going to network events because it feels a little bit like, who are you? What do you do? What can you do for me? It activates the ego for me. So it's hard for me to be my passionate self. However, when I'm in communities, it feels we're all there because we love something. We're not there to get a job or to do a career opportunity. We're there because we have a shared passion for some kind of, in this case, in the tech and getting to build together. And that exchange of ideas allows you to activate the thing that lights you up. And when you
Mm-hmm.
connect on that way,
Yeah.
and opportunities will come, but it'll be more in alignment with
Yes.
things,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I love that.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Authenticity. And when you feel like nobody's judging you because everybody's going through the same thing, but different projects,
Yes.
you're on the same level,
Yeah.
regardless of what you do for work. You you come into the same room because you're aligned on mission, you're aligned on values. And that's
Yeah.
where I actually find myself feeling more, definitely feeling more like myself.
Yeah. So, okay. So tell me about this transition then. How did you know you wanted to start to become a community creator, builder?
I didn't have a label for what I love doing. Reflecting back on my life, honestly, the community building, public service, creating creating these groups and giving back actually goes back to middle school. But the whole application of creating community formally, and especially in tech, it started, I guess, in 2015. It was a long time, but it also required me to like understand the community and understand the ecosystem before actually finding a way to lead it. You can't just be a leader. You have to kind of like know what it's like to be a member and what made you feel good, what made you feel like you belong, what made you not like it or leave, what makes people like continue to say or burn out or whatnot, like all of that. I've observed and experienced because I have been a member. And then when I became like a leader, I was one of the co-founders and co-organizers of the San Francisco Augmented Reality and Computer Vision meetup. And this was when I was getting into the XR space. I started building those rooms and helping build those rooms and realize, like this is not a one person thing. You will burn out so fast if you decide to do this by yourself. And I've seen some people who want to be the sole leader of these communities because it does make them look good, saying like, I lead a community of this. I was able to get the resources to this. And then as soon as they create a program and then try to bring people in it, they're burned out, they leave, they're actually not part of the community anymore. They're just like, I created this, now go be the community. I'm like, it takes more than that to actually build a community. And it's not just a community. Community, if you think about it, is just a small piece of the entire puzzle. I mean, what is the purpose of community anyways? If you look back, peel the layers, what is the why? You want a place to learn. You want a place to meet your people. You want a place to keep you accountable and not feel like you're going to be an absolute nerd or a geek because you're so passionate about this thing. You want to find your people, but if you create the room and you're actually not that people, what are you doing as a leader? You're just looking good, not actually being part of it.
Okay, so this is why I wanted to have this podcast, and I'm really excited to chat with you because I feel like we've definitely have been in enough tech groups together to see the good and the bad. We know each other from being in XR communities together. And then I
Mm-hmm.
think you since have moved towards AI. So I want to talk about that transition. I want to also dive a little bit deeper into what your perspective is in terms of its role in innovation, because I personally believe, having seen it, things from the big tech side and from being in the community side, how much innovation really starts from the community,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes they don't get the credit for it. Sometimes, there could be inspiration that leads to bigger projects. A lot of the biggest wins, the $1 billion apps, the $1 billion experiences, and the unicorns have come from communities, tinkers, people who are just doing something for fun or whatever, and they end up landing on a gold that ends up being a win for the platform. So for VR, that was Beat Game Studio, Gorillas had, which was like a little indie, I think a solo dev. And then Onward was also like a indie dev that created that app. And these all went on to be huge, huge retention drivers for the XR platform in ways that big companies haven't been able to replicate with their own first party groups. So now we're moving to the AI world. Obviously, you now are on this side of AI and building communities here, and you've seen a lot of successes from the groups that you've organized. Tell me more about what you feel like the role of community is in innovation in the tech industry. I remember from our days in XR, there was a lot of people who felt threatened or scared or competitive with corporate. Do you see that similar, attitude in the AI world? And what do you feel like the difference is? Yeah.
Yeah, it feels different. At least
Okay.
like, the, okay, so AGI Ventures actually came into existence 2 years ago, or like a little over 2 years ago, as the first AI Tinkers chapter in Canada. So AI Tinkers is like, it's a monthly meetup. My co-founder brought that into Ottawa because he wanted to find other AI enthusiasts who are excited to share their knowledge. And it was really fun because, everybody was just playing. They're just
Yeah.
having fun. There's no pressure. And they have so much pride in what they worked on that they want to share it with the group in a room full of people. And people's just seeing how people worked with AI, the different types of tools and APIs and LLMs that people were using, what they're discovering, that knowledge sharing was really helpful in bringing a lot of value to people. And so overall, AGI Ventures helps Canadians and businesses adopt AI faster in a human way. We started 2 years ago as AI Tinkers, as a monthly meetup, and eventually I came in around like meetup number 2 or 3, and I started introducing like little initiatives that I thought that builders would probably enjoy. So one was the weekly co-hacking. A lot of builders, they work in silos and they work on their side projects. They work in isolation. So I made a hypothesis. I bet there are more people who would like to build alongside other builders and talk about it at the same time. They could find, the body doubling focus, and it increases accountability. It makes progress faster. And there's also the knowledge sharing. If there's a new LLM or a new app or a new API becomes available, they could immediately start talking about it and start building and working with each other to build it. So I made that bet. Early 2024 started with just 3 people, me, my husband John, and Hai, meeting every single week. We started inviting people every single meetup saying, hey, actually, we're working together at this location. Come and join. By the time I came back from San Francisco, there were like 20, 30 people who would come every week and just hang out, work on their projects. So hypothesis correct. People want to be around people who are building things, and all of that insightful information helps them grow in their careers, help them get jobs, help them actually launch their apps. And then I also made another bet. When I was living in a hacker house in San Francisco, they were testing this idea of like a 1-day hackathon. So I was thinking like, you know what? This might be possible for us. So I introduced a 1-day hackathon, and I was hoping that there would be just like 100 people interested. And because we realized that we actually had to budget for to feed 100 people. If we were to have a hackathon, then that's like $3,000 something to run it at the very least. How do we find sponsors? And that process actually, it burns people
Burns
out.
up.
Like
Yeah.
meetups turn into businesses, or it turns
Yes.
into like I don't like doing this. I came here because I want to build, but in order to build these rooms, you have to, you know, get money and do the selling, not the building, to bring money
Yeah.
to keep the building going. And that burns people out. Builders don't want that.
I'm curious too. I feel like I feel like that's the hardest part, to figure out how to find a space where people can work,
Yeah.
especially with the growth.
Yeah, we were using Invest Ottawa. So Invest Ottawa is a nonprofit organization here in Ottawa that helps like startups, small businesses. They're nonprofit, so they provide these services to entrepreneurs. My husband's friend who works at Invest Ottawa saying like, oh, there's this AI group that you guys might want to check out. So that's kind of like how I heard about it. And then yeah, it's a word of mouth. Like honestly, most of our marketing is word of mouth and from our channels. We don't do paid marketing at all. And our community, yeah, and our community is over 1,500 people
Yeah.
at the moment.
Wow. 1,500 people now, all from Ottawa.
Majority from Ottawa, and our Discord is very engaged too. It's a
Yeah.
whole ecosystem play. It's not just a community play. If we think about community, it just like community tasks. We're thinking about like set up this event, set up that event, but if you think about ecosystem, that's where all the value is when it comes to these tech spaces and keeping everybody going. The space, Invest Ottawa, they're part of our ecosystem. They're part of the tech ecosystem overall. With Shopify, we do Builder Sundays over there. They're part of the tech ecosystem. So it doesn't have to be AGI Ventures Canada doing every single thing. If we do that, then it's too much for us to do for the scale and impact we want to accomplish. Like we want to be known across Canada as like bringing in the people who are the cracked up builders who share the same values, have the same missions. AGI Ventures happened because we got a lot of sponsorships, money, and we had to create an entity to hold that money, because that's otherwise we're personally liable for all the taxes. It started as like community first, like we're doing this for fun, having lots and lots of fun while we're at it, and then realized like, oh, we need to be a little formal here so we don't get in trouble. And then we created AGI Ventures as a result. And here's where we make it sustainable, because that sustainability is like a hard problem for personal and everything.
And when you say sustainability, like you mean the ability to be able to organize an event or a meetup on a regular basis, in terms of like
Yes.
being able to keep the lights on, find secure a venue, and be able to manage like the people, like maybe sign up sheets and marketing and all that.
Energy of the people.
Energy of the people.
Yeah. So the less time we spend on like for example, finding sponsors is very hard. A lot of meetups, a lot of
Yeah. Time
communities
out
are
really
doing
quick.
that. Our events have like for co-hacking, we have between 5 to 30 people that come every
Okay.
single week.
Okay. So that's
Then
pretty manageable. Yeah.
yeah. And then we have hackathons too. So I think where we left off was me coming in to AI Tinkers at that time, messaging the other co-organizers about trying out a 1-day hackathon. It kind of like changed the game of having full week on hackathons into like 1-day events. And I thought that was so exciting because then we could open up this hackathon community to not to people who are typically very busy. So hackathons are not regular monthly meetups, evening meetups. This is feeding 100 people 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then
Oh,
having the
wow.
space where they could hack.
Wow.
And fortunately, some of our members work at companies that had a potential space where we could have it for free. So that company was Solace, who was so generous with us. They
Wow.
provide the
Yeah.
space, but to accommodate the pricing and everybody, we went to Costco. We bought Costco pizza. We were really on a budget. We got Tim Hortons for coffee. People were traveling from Montreal to attend our hackathon. And so a lot of these things just happened and got put together through ecosystem support and members who just stepped up and said, you need help here. I could help here. And that's when I realized, we have a really great group because we're all on the same page and they're not just idea people. It's very common to have ideas people proposing like, we should have this event, we should have that event. But if
Yeah.
you ask them, where do you see yourself in this event? Some people will just respond like, oh, I'm just throwing out ideas, or I'm here to be an advisor. I don't like that response when I hear from
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
especially if they're not super experienced or they just come up with this idea and they want the credit for the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've been fortunate that a lot of members in our ecosystem are those who are not afraid to get their hands dirty and give back.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is like an idea for the hackathon that was pitched to a large group of people. So maybe it's the weekly meetup to the 30 people. Or
Mm-hmm.
how did that actually work out?
How it happened?
I
Oh,
guess
yeah.
there's always two phases of a developing project, right? There's the ideation phase, the strategizing, like what are we doing, what are we
Yeah.
building, blah. And then there's the people who do it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
execute on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the fun part. This is the fun part.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, this was like less than 2 weeks planning or from idea
Wow.
to actually doing it.
Yeah.
It
And
started
how many
with
people were involved? Yeah.
maybe 10 people.
Okay, so
May
10
have
people
been
helped build this for within 2 weeks.
AI Tinkerers. What they're known for is monthly technical meetups where
Yeah.
they find about like 3 speakers to show and tell what they've been working on in front of
Okay.
a group of people. So it's mostly presentations. So
Okay.
that's the main initiative. And then it just grew through word of
Okay.
mouth, where the most we've had in an event is 400, or I think around there. But it started with this, and then co-hacking started with 3 people, and then it grew. Like these are 2 different initiatives, but they all
Yeah.
fit into the same mission and the
Yeah.
same builder community.
Right. Okay. And you
Yeah,
know what I love about that is because you're not building something from scratch. There's a lot of meetup groups that meet on a regular basis.
that's it. It's such a
Yes.
low lift in San Francisco. It seems like a lot of these meetup communities and groups function on their own without working with others. So you're starting communities from scratch. You're building everything from scratch. It's a heavier lift. But if someone in our ecosystem is interested in another initiative they believe our builders would be interested in, for example,
Mhm.
AI designers or like small town initiatives, we already have the people, we have the platform, we have the systems. They could be the leader. We help them with the people. We
I mean,
bring
just
it to
follow. Yeah.
them. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. So as you guys have grown, so this was like, so about 8 weeks, it sounds like 2 months, you started to see 30 people a meeting. Now you've been running this program for how many years now?
I think it's over 2 years now.
It's been over 2 years now, and you've been
Yeah.
still meeting weekly.
Some folks have
So,
been meeting weekly. I mean, I haven't been attending too many of them anymore,
mhm. Okay.
but this is the interesting part, and I think is a true test if your community and ecosystem is there and people find valuable. Me and my co-founder, we couldn't find time to be there in person anymore.
Mhm.
You know, he couldn't travel here, or I was in San Francisco, so somebody had to be there all the time. When we were announcing that we might shut it down, other people stepped up. They saw themselves as like, this has been valuable to me and I love this space. My people are here. I don't want to stop the party.
You know what I love about that too? Because I've actually seen, I have one community in my head because that the community was so intertwined with their identity. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it was less about, maybe it was about building community, but it was also their project, I guess. When things had broken down and things had fallen apart, instead of them looking for help, they didn't. They just killed the whole community. And I feel like that can be a very dangerous experience. Some people feel really possessive of the community
Mm-hmm.
identity to the point where like if they can't do it or if they're not in it, then they'll take the community will die with it. You know, it sounds like you've already had a healthier way of like, you know, adjusting. Like, it sounds like you happily relinquished and helped them make sure that this could stand on its own. Like, have you seen other communities be able to stand on their own when the person needs to leave or the leader needs to leave? What does that look like?
Yeah. I think you and I had this experience in San Francisco and some of the communities that we were a part of. But I remember when, yeah, when the leader leaves, the culture leaves. But why
Mm,
is the culture only tied to the leader? And why
yeah,
is it
wow.
only possible with a leader? It means that the culture is not fully there. It's
Mm,
mostly there. It's definitely tied to ego for some of these communities too.
yeah.
Like I don't want to name communities, but when egos are tied to I founded this organization founded by blank, and then if somebody else says like, oh, you haven't been able to put in more time or effort into it, I'm happy to step up, then they don't want to pass the torch. It dies.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
dies, and then people compete.
And
Community
people like
dies with
use
leaders
it.
competing.
Yeah,
It's
I've seen
bad.
co-founders, yeah, if there was a tension or some kind of conflict between the co-founders, sometimes they'll weaponize owning the platforms for where these communities are hosted, and maybe like shut it down or like whatever. There's these dynamics that can exist. What I like about yours is that you said you had a mission and you had values, and once
Mm-hmm.
you tied it to that, then it becomes bigger than about who this belongs to and who's the leader and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. It's when people come together, there's a shared sense of this is what we're here for, this is what we're here
Yeah.
to do, and this is why we do it. I love it. This is
Yeah.
why we do it. So then when these conflicts happen, there's
Yep.
a more of a fighting chance
Mm-hmm.
for people to relinquish without it being tied to them and for other people to step up because they want to continue to uphold the
Mm-hmm.
mission and values that they feel aligned with.
I talk about values a lot, but I haven't actually shared the values yet. So, one, build your community first. So, this is
Mm,
taking the ego and just step back. What is good for the community? The builder community. If it's good for them, it'll be good for us to support them, even if they're
mm,
competing. The next
mm,
one, talking about competition, we value collaboration over competition. Because if
mm,
you are a budding group, and you're already thinking about competition, you're not going to last long. You're going to kill yourself before you actually make a change or help others. It's better if you collaborate together because that whole yes and mentality makes it bigger than it ever could be. Our community is pretty diverse. We have people
mm,
from all over, Canadians, immigrants, women, all of that.
mm,
We just unify on our values and mission, and
mm,
it's amazing. Another one is bias to action. So this is where we were talking about, do you have a lot of ideas, people? Great. Ideas are cool. But if there's no one to execute and no one
mhm,
who wants to actually put a stake in the ground and say, this is how it's going to work,
mhm,
what's the point of doing it? Another one is radical candor. Another one is knowledge sharing. In AI, you can't just learn in silo anymore. It's too much. It's overwhelming.
mhm,
But with that knowledge sharing, then everybody just rises together and gets those jobs. They raise money, they launch their startups, make their sales, like all of that. It just helps everybody. Another one is
mhm,
growth. And then
mhm,
finally, fun maxing. Having fun slash
mhm.
fun maxing. That was a newest addition, but it's also coming from a reflection of what we've been doing the past few years because we're not getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
But what's keeping us going? We're having fun and we like the people that we work with. So if it stops being fun, then we're going to have to step back and wonder, like, what's keeping it from having fun? So this is all out of love.
Yeah. So how did you come up with these 8 values? How did you know when to stop?
My co-founder and I were talking about like what our values are. And then we
Mm,
talked to our other collaborators. But the initial list or the start of the list, came from observing what we currently have, just reflecting on the past 2 years. What did our builders actually value and what made them keep coming back? There's a certain level of energy we bring in. And when we created AGI Ventures, we started thinking about like, okay, now we have this entity. I think we need to figure out what it really stands for. And initially, it was like a brain dump of, here's what we value. We value innovation. We value growth mindset. And my co-founder challenged it, saying, what would make our values different from other companies who say the same thing? And like,
Yeah, that's
oh,
amazing.
that is true. You can't ChatGPT your way into these values.
Yeah.
It'll be generic.
Yeah.
So this is all like just based on observing the trends in our builders, and from all those years of meetups and hacker houses and programs that I've been a part of, and we came up with this list. So that's
Aw.
where it came from.
This is actually your thing too, because and then feel free if you don't want to talk about this, it's fine. But
No
I
worries.
actually think it would be very interesting because you've done this in your marriage as well, didn't
I
you? Like you kind of yeah. I remember you sharing like
I have.
yeah.
It
So this
is
is
like
something you
dating.
do. Yeah.
It's like dating, but in group form.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's interesting that you point that out because, like, remember I mentioned like early on when I was dating like years ago, my original list was must be over 6 feet tall, must be cute, must be. It's so superficial. It's so
That's super
superficial.
real. Yeah. Yeah.
But then after dating multiple people, like my process is actually like after a relationship ends, I start reflecting like, what are the pros? What are the cons? What did I learn? Every single relationship, I did that. And as a result, because of that reflection, my list of qualities in a perfect partner changed. It was no longer that important that they went to a really great school.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that doesn't
Even
say
though your
anything.
husband did go to a really great school.
He did. He did.
But like I love so that I mean I love that even proves the point even more. We talk about earlier in the beginning where how would it have changed your approach if you knew that the guy was a EVP, you know, that you ended up talking to and you ended up getting this
Hmm.
job opportunity versus not knowing that at all and just more so meeting and share and having a shared passionate conversation around
Yeah,
technology. It's
exactly.
kind of like that, right? It's like what are
Understanding
your
what's important.
values?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it all together. I love that because you said like through the experience of dating, it refined your list of what you feel like is important. But you mentioned how it was your experience in communities over and over again that helps you learn what a great community is. Yeah,
Absolutely. And
yeah,
also, I just want to note too, just because these are the values now, it doesn't mean that they might change in the future. We're
yeah.
adaptive. We have to be adaptive.
So why do you think it's important for this to be done in communities? Why not let it allow it to be an individual thing?
Yeah. Honestly, it really does take a village. So growing up in the US, in
Mhm.
California, we learn a different way of living and thinking.
Yeah.
Now that I've been living in Canada since 2020, I go back and forth between San Francisco and Canada. I realize a different way of thinking too.
Mm,
In the US, it's very individualistic. In Canada, it's a bit more community oriented. Also, I'm Filipino.
mhm.
In the Philippines, it's also very community oriented as well. You know, you're not really on your own. Um, so that's where you realize that if you really want to run a community and you want to try to run yourself, is that even a community? It sounds like your own self project where only you are a member.
Right. But maybe some people actually find that to be the ideal, right? So like even just like recently, just seeing the way that America is going with, you know, the administration that we have, a lot of times people feel like the individual is what matters, individual pursuits, and that's more important. And community is not necessarily a high priority. I do feel like here in Europe, it's definitely also very community oriented as well, just even by design in the cities.
Hmm.
And I'm sure Ottawa is the same. It's very walkable. You're constantly seeing similar faces in shops and people talk to each other and all that.
Hmm.
Whereas like I feel like in like you're right from Silicon Valley, everyone's in their cars. You don't see people walking. You're in the drive-through. Hey, hi and bye. Just here's my money. Like and take the thing and go. There's like very little opportunities. We don't have third spaces in Silicon Valley that much. And when we do have events, like you said, there is a lot of tech meetups, but they're often like business sponsored. It's not really community driven. Somebody's launching this new product, and so they're inviting people to come and learn about it. And it's like a hack up event, or come check out this office, and it's like more of a branding event. And so you don't really see that on a regular basis. So you don't see those same
Mhm.
people on a regular basis.
Those are events. In that case, that's not
Yes.
a community, it's an event.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's a very event-driven culture, not a community-driven culture. So, do you think one is better than the other? Like, and because, or do you think it can work? It's just two different trade-offs, pros and cons.
I think they all fall into the same ecosystem, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
what you're talking about when, like, let's say a company is like, "Oh, let's help people be more aware about our products," that's very event-based.
yeah,
But if they're like, "Let's build a room where people that we just so happen want to attract come in," and it becomes consistent, they build the relationships, and it becomes their
yeah,
third space,
yeah.
then it becomes more community focused. You need events to kick it off.
Right. And I agree with you. Like, events it's very infrequent, so it's not conducive to building relationships in general.
Yeah.
And it's also not building stuff. Whereas in your case, community, you're actually creating a space, regular space for people to build relationships, to have a sense of knowing that, oh, I might see these people the next week, and have people to build with and I'm bond with in a real
Mhm.
way. I want the audience to know why community is important. Because the thing is, there's a lot of like people, especially who don't, they devalue when you hear community, they hear
Mhm.
community, they hear it and see it as like, oh, that's like charity kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, not everyone thinks like that,
Yeah.
but it's not a masculine way of thinking. Like you
Yeah.
said, there's Silicon Valley. What you're hitting on is a really strong point, that Silicon Valley is very individualistic mindset. It doesn't have an infrastructure that supports building communities,
Yeah.
and therefore, how do you feel like that might be hurting Silicon Valley
Mhm.
versus helping?
Maybe a different framing is, if you had to, like, you could say that I did this by myself. If you had to give credit to somebody, who would you give the credit to?
Yeah. When I imagine this persona, I imagine
Mhm.
them stubbornly defiant that they did everything themselves and they
Yeah.
undervalue the
Yeah.
help that they've got. Like Elon Musk, I got to where I am where they don't acknowledge their wives that helped raise their children, or
Yeah.
who might have sponsored the idea. Is this particular persona that I'm thinking about that's very pervasive in Silicon Valley,
Mhm.
and tech bros in general, that contributes to this individualistic culture that we're seeing. Because I do feel like there's a correlation, because I was part of Oculus Launchpad as well, and
Mhm.
Women in XR and AI, and Oculus Launchpad being diversity, I guess, initiative, whatever. I hate that, but they had 100 devs of underrepresented backgrounds in VR meet and compete over building an app for the platform, and seeing all these people who look different from me, but there is no dominant majority. So we all share the same space and we all support each other. Maybe because most of us were first generation or come from immigrant backgrounds. I'm not sure what that is, but there was a natural community values. Uncle's Launchpad was designed to be individualistic. It was
Yeah.
designed for these 100 devs to compete against each other. And what was unusual about my second cohort was me and another dev, or at this time she was a user researcher. We decided to pair up. She was going through a personal life change that was not it was not a great time in her life. So she could only give 50%. I was working full time, so I could only give 50%. And that 50% happened to naturally overlap with our shared passion for exploring VR
Mhm.
for bias training, her bringing in the research and me bringing in I just wanted to learn how to build for this device. I didn't
Yeah.
want to have to do the thinking behind it because I have to do so much thinking for work. And she didn't want to have to do the building for it. So it worked out
Mhm.
really well that we teamed up. But I think there's something about people who are underrepresented, because we are in environments where we're not always feeling safe. We have a heightened sense of desire to feel a connection or to feel belonging. Whereas if you're already the majority in a space and you're majority represented, and you see yourself everywhere, then it might mean that the desire is to stand out. It might be
Mhm.
the desire is to do something myself, and to have a way to differentiate myself from the others. So I'm wondering if, like, those experiences of two different demographic groups, a majority and underrepresented people, the need and what drives the values of the culture is based on this cumulative experience. In Silicon Valley being homogeneously, it's tech bros, or at least that's where that comes from, right? compared to other places like Canada, I would say, or Europe. It's not as competitive, it's not as capitalistic. So therefore the culture kind of create a space where people just kind of maybe just in Ottawa in general, because you maybe you're more far removed from all these busy places to meet other people.
Well, Ottawa's getting it's starting to get some events. I'm starting to see other organization or like some tech communities starting to do like co-hacking too. So I'm
Oh
glad that they're
wow.
doing that, even though it's like, oh,
Yes.
co-hacking originated from us. But if other people are doing it, that means our builders have other places to go that we
Yeah.
don't have to plan. It's
Yes. And you
good.
have more
This is
builders.
exactly builder community first.
Yeah.
It fits into everything. Like we don't have to do it. But we could
Yeah.
if we want to start something or we want to try to see if it works. Sometimes I kind of think as our builder community, it's like a startup, right? You have your end users. You want to know what they'll like and not like. If they say, I don't like it as much, you do something else. If they really like it, you yes and it.
Mm.
And another initiative that we tried in late December, we had the opportunity to take over this 3-bedroom apartment in downtown Ottawa. And I've been talking about hacker houses in Ottawa for a really long time. But one of our organizers, his roommates were moving out, and they had one
Mm.
month to figure out what to do with it and suggested that we finally do our hacker house. So, less than a week, we put this month-long hacker house together, like cleaned up the place, bought like desks and chairs. This was kind of like the playground to see if we have these set of values, we attract the right people
Mhm.
and accept the right people and create this type of programming and these motivational points to get them to build and ship a project. Can this opportunity work? Or can this opportunity propel them faster than they would on their own? The answer is yes. Yeah.
So that already is like one really strong sell for why community driven building is really important. Because one, it helps not only people, individuals
Hmm.
execute on their idea, but you because you have that structure of accountability, but also too, you build the idea faster. That was one of the things that I really loved about the communities I was in. I almost didn't submit my app on the Pro Atlas Launchpad in 2017, the one that I ended up winning the funding for, because but when I was trying to get submit my app into the Oculus store, the submission tool, it wasn't going through. It kept getting some kind of error, and it was a like before. And if you did not get it in, you don't make it in. And thank God, I put a message into the Facebook group and I said, "Hey, I'm struggling with this." And the person said, "Oh, the reason why that's happening is it was something like." Instead of uploading it here, upload it on this browser instead. As a result, I was able to upload it. And he didn't have to help me. I'm pretty sure he was stressed out that midnight as well
You were
too. But
competitors too.
we're competitors as well. Thank God he ended up winning also. But you know what I'm saying? But that is something that you can really only get from community. It's really
Hmm.
hard to do that by yourself because these tools are not always perfect. And so being part of a community helps you cover your gaps. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's what I'm hearing is
Yeah.
what you did. So what's next?
In January, we started working on applied AI labs because here's another really great thing too. Because of our presence and what we've been giving back to the community and the tech ecosystem, we're known in Ottawa as experts in AI. We're visible. People
Mm,
talk about us. All of our community, we come together for AI. We're known as
yeah.
AI. A percentage of the revenue we get from the applied AI side when companies hire us actually goes back to the community, the
Oh,
ecosystem
wow.
side.
So
That
wait, when
way,
they're hiring you yeah, sorry, go ahead.
when they hire us,
Yeah. What are you doing?
consulting, building products, helping like companies transform their teams, their or maybe launch
Oh,
their
wow.
apps using AI, and then building and advising. That's on the applied AI side, and we make our own internal tools, our own agents to help ourselves and our contributors support our members better. So it
Wow.
all like comes together and plays a little cycle.
Mm. Tell me about some of the successes that you've had in the group. I know you said some people have gone off to like raise
Yeah.
millions maybe. So tell me about like how many successes do you think you've had and yeah, what did that look like?
Yeah. We've had folks who, so let's say, example, Josh and Leo, they were coming to our co-hacking quite a bit. They got accepted to YC and now they're both living in San Francisco. I even personally helped them out with their trailer. I did like a
Oh, wow.
voiceover and I was helping them, like, "Oh yeah, whatever, like if there's anything I could help with." So it's like I'm part
Community
of I'm part of it. I'm part of it.
ecosystem.
Yeah. Exactly,
Yeah.
the giving
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
It's not just taking, it's about the giving back. We have some folks who end up getting jobs because of attending our events and being part
Wow.
of like our Discord or community. Some of them ended up pitching VCs for money without initially thinking that they would pitch. And then that startup ended up incorporating a company. So we had two companies that got incorporated because of the Hacker House. Quite a few of them making their first sales. And we had some who were able to finish their projects even before the month was over. So it propelled them faster. And it got people to think about problems in a very different way, working in a different way, and challenging each other's ideas and their products to the point where even as simple as let's change the image on your hero section on your website to make it more engaging rather than
Yeah.
stock image. Like
Yeah.
we AI engineering and building with AI is just the baseline.
Yeah.
They're all smart.
Yeah.
But part of our application process, in addition to looking at their GitHub, their LinkedIn, why they want to be there, the panel asks, will they inspire you? And will they motivate you? And also we also had a field in the application of like
Wait, is this the form? Do people have to apply to weekly builders, or is this for a
the
specific
Hacker
event like
House.
the Hacker House? Okay, got it.
Actually,
Sorry.
all of them has like a certain application when you sign up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
But for the
the
Hacker
tech
House, it's a
meetup.
specific
Yeah.
program.
So
Yeah.
tech
Okay.
meetups, you have to be technical. You add your GitHub and just show that you are a builder. That
Mhm.
keeps the right people in the right room. For the
Mhm.
weekly co-hacking, it's very simple. It's like, okay, what's your LinkedIn? What's your GitHub? What are you planning to work on today? What are you planning to or like what are you planning to finish today or work on and finish
Mm,
today? So that
mm,
already like sets their mindset to I'm coming here with an intention to work on this project. Applications and weeding out is just like it's a way to control the vibe of the room. And then
mm,
for the Hacker House, it was a little bit more. Obviously, basics, LinkedIn, GitHub, why they want to be part of this, why do they want to be part of the Hacker House, what they're looking to get out of it. If they were to give a talk about something, like what 3 topics would they be? So this is where we check out where they feel confident in and their
mm,
expertise. Because like some of our events that we had in the Hacker House
mhm,
was run by the residents. They have this expertise, they are sharing it. And
mm,
also, we incentivize them to contribute in some way, shape, or form. And so they would like
mhm,
step up and do certain things. And
mhm,
we really made sure we had like the code of conduct and then that they agree to it. So there's already a lot of like, hey, before you even come into this room, will you be helpful? Will you be collaborative? And making sure that everybody is coming from diverse backgrounds. And by
mm,
diverse, I mean like skill sets and mindsets and like professions or like working on startups. Because if you have the same people in the same room, you're going to have the same output. But if you
mhm,
if you combine engineers with marketers, with designers, with subject matter experts, with and then
mm,
then all of a sudden the knowledge sharing is not like, oh, I am the expert in this. I'm better than you. It's more of like, I know this knowledge. I think this will be helpful to you. And they know who to go to.
So, yeah, wow.
It's
So,
architecting an ecosystem. That's what I
yeah,
do.
something that comes to mind too, again, because obviously I'm still XR oriented. Like, this is you're kind of putting me through some education around AI and how those communities are oriented. The first thing I think about is like, why couldn't this have been a regular thing for XR? Even if I wanted to try to replicate that here, I just think how difficult it is because of the hardware. And I wonder if this was like a barrier to even creating communities because
Yeah.
the hardware was so hard to bring. It wasn't portable. Like you couldn't
Right.
really bring your devices. Then you have to bring your huge laptop and you have to huge thing. And then you have to connect it to Wi-Fi, making sure you have the right lighting, making sure you have the room mapped out. There's so much environmental requirements and hardware requirements that it really makes it hard to be regularly meeting with VR, especially if
Yeah.
everyone has to have the device. Whereas like with AI, I could see how it can accelerate innovation just because by nature of it, it's already integrated into everything we use. That's portable, light. You can do it
Yeah.
on your phone even. And so it's just about showing up to the place with one device and then just doing things
Yeah.
and not having to worry about space side of it, plugging your laptop. And so I wonder how much of the how much we see in innovation and how much excitement we see and the ability to even build communities around AI is simply because it's accessible, more accessible
Hmm.
physically.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think about XR communities? I know you were working in a VR startup with your partner, and tell me a little bit more about your experience in the VR startup space. And do you see yourself moving or changing direction, or do you see this all combining? Or yeah, how do you marry the two?
Yeah. So I still find VR exciting.
Okay.
Being able to build worlds that only you could
Yeah.
think of. It's kind of like you're building worlds and then you have a visual platform to experience that world. I think that's so exciting. But the community is small,
Uh-huh.
especially now, like there's not much economic opportunity or financial
Mhm.
opportunity in a certain technology. You'll know who's really in it and who's not.
Yeah.
But then even those who are like super in it and passionate and there's still no economic opportunity, it's unsustainable to
Mm,
continue investing energy into that. Your question earlier about like, okay, if is creating an XR community similar to AI community, I would say it's very different because XR communities has a prerequisite of having the hardware or having something that everyone could afford. So you're attracting a certain type of person here, someone who, it can't be a recent graduate or it can't be like an undergrad who is worried about how they're going to pay tuition or there's such a financial barrier getting into it. It's not very accessible or it's not
I forgot that.
democratizing. Yeah.
Yeah. You're
So,
right. There is a financial barrier. I didn't even think about that.
yeah.
Whereas like AI is like 20 bucks a month. Yeah.
Yeah, AI is like, yeah, it's very accessible, like
Yeah. It's a Big Mac meal.
Claude Code, or even just like there's a lot of free trials. There's a lot of
Yeah.
tutorials, and they already have the equipment,
Yeah.
or just or
Yeah.
hopefully they have a powerful enough computer to handle everything. But less barriers. They just need community knowledge and people who are going to be just like them and willing to go geek out. And in the momentum of having a lot
Yeah.
of people in the same room.
Yeah. So you're not someone who's left XR for AI. You see yourself as I'm still passionate about XR, but there's a lot of dead ends in that. You see AI has a lot more open doors. Is that accurate?
AI
I mean,
has a lot more
yeah.
open doors. It's
Yeah.
AI is something that I could just open up my computer and say, I have an idea, let's get this done. I still have VR headsets.
Yeah.
I want to use them. I don't really
Yeah.
use them. Why?
Yeah.
Because when I'm excited and ready to use them, they're out of batteries. If getting into VR means I need to wait an hour to make sure everything is charged, or I have to plan out playing in VR, that's not fun.
Uh, dang, that's so true.
It's You need money to keep things sustainable. It's like that's
Yeah.
the hard truth. You could build something out of love, but this is the whole ecosystem. You could build something out of love. You could build a community out of love, a product out of love, but if you don't have that fuel to sustain you, you won't be there anymore. And then
Yeah.
your people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm a fan, but you're gone."
It's interesting how like those pain points, like, over time they add up.
Many gates. There are too many doors
Yeah,
to
there's
even
so
get to
many.
that first thing. And you're
Our
only
world is
talking about
built
the
around that.
hardware. You're not talking
Yeah.
about like installing Unity and then learning how to build these prototypes. You haven't even touched that.
And I
Or
heard that
learning C
too.
sharp.
And even Unity changing, like Unity is like, "Oh, we're gonna charge you guys. Never mind, we're not gonna charge you guys." And then like Unreal now is supposed to be like way better. And so I'm like, "Oh, should I be learning Unreal?" And
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, it's just
See,
after 10 years.
there's that question. It's like, how can you sustain your community when all the players in your ecosystem are changing too many things and creating so many barriers that you can't even sustain yourself or product can't even sustain themselves?
Or if I've switched from Quest to Apple or from Apple to Galaxy
Hmm.
XR, and then most of this community is Quest 3. So they might have great knowledge on Quest 3, but now that I'm working at Apple Vision Pro, they might not have that knowledge and I've lost my community. Even I can
Yeah.
be in the same room with them.
It's too
I've
dependent
lost,
on like a single thing. You can't
yeah,
let everything be dependent on a single thing. You need to spread it
yeah.
across.
Yeah.
you know?
Whereas it's decentralized. It's
Yeah.
decentralized. And like, so even if you have the same community, it's now decentralized information. Right now, I'm part of a huge XR community in London and I love it. But I feel like a lot of it is around art, cinema, and media, like, and interactive design, mixed media, health, well being, which is all great, great verticals. It's something you won't see in the States because a lot of this stuff is government funded rather than investment funded. And it's
Mhm.
education and learning. But I'm like, where's the people who are just building like random experiences of like services? It's all very thoughtful, but not in my lane of VR. And so it's like, dang it, even though I'm part of this community, I don't still feel that same sense of connection in VR because all those industries, all those sectors, all those different genres of VR
Mm.
require different tools, require different platforms, require different hardware to
Well,
execute. So,
I
yeah,
think this okay, so value collaboration over competition.
yeah,
VR, from what you're describing,
yeah.
different things for different hardware, different people, different hardware, that falls into competition over collaboration from just even the hardware itself.
Yeah. It's just also like we're like now strangers to each other because we don't
Mhm.
have like the same knowledge base. So to get you into that individual mindset. Okay, I have to find the people who use Unreal Engine and not Unity to build this type of feature for this hardware, or who's using AR and
It's
mixed
too
reality with this
niche.
headset.
It's
It's
too
too
niche.
fractured, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so it create already that web of fractures makes it really hard to have a sustainable community unless you go into that niche
Mhm.
area. But even then, because it changes so much, the environment around that niche will change so much and you're not growing.
This I feel like the basics are lacking in these communities. What is their shared mission? What are
Yeah.
their shared values? If value is we all build with Oculus or we all build using Apple Vision Pro
Yeah.
and you have to use Unity or you have to use Unreal and then all
Yeah.
of a sudden you you take those away, you have no shared values.
Yeah.
What is your value?
Whereas in AI, the process is the same. Even if it's Claude versus Open AI, the tools work virtually the same. You could say, "Oh, I'm using Cloud Code to do this." I'm like, "Oh, I'm using Chat." You wouldn't be like, "Oh, we can't. We have nothing to relate to. There's no overlap."
Yeah,
No, it's the same. What is your prompt? What was your prompt? Like
right.
that process will still work. What is your
Exactly.
output? If anything, it's additive. It actually continues to further bonding or building together and outcomes that lead to innovation and accelerate,
Mhm.
finding the right ideas that will change the world
Yeah.
in a ways that XR kind of eats against
Yeah.
itself because it doesn't have that. I almost wonder, like, was the competition of headsets the death note to communities in XR? Because
Mm,
communities used to be so strong around one platform, Quest. We were all building for Oculus. We all had the same grievances. Oh, they changed this, they deprecated it, and it was just two groups. But then once the Apple Vision came in, now Galaxy headset come in, and then Valve comes in, and then Steam comes in, and then PlayStation comes in. The groups begin to
yeah.
fracture. It disintegrates the ability for people to innovate. And what does work well is the lucky individuals who randomly come out on
Yeah.
top, like the random indie dev who decided to build Gorilla Tag. And
Well, if you think about it, capitalism loves fracturing. They will extract as much value from those fractured pieces. And after
yeah,
they're done extracting, then they leave
what's left
behind just
behind
the
is
pieces.
ashes. Yeah, what's left behind is
That's
ashes.
the formula.
Yeah, that's it. That's the death. Yeah. What is it? It's not a death note. Is it a death? Oh, that
Death
sucks.
spiral or
That
something,
spiral? Yeah,
I guess.
exactly. So it sounds like already, just even on that note, this is so insightful because I feel like AI as an infrastructure sets the ability to create communities up for success
Mhm.
that keeps the community connected and finding a sense of belonging. And therefore, the spaces that you create allow them to be focused enough for ideas to spread and then, build
Yeah.
careers. It leads to successful products
Yeah.
and more innovation could come from that.
I do
Yeah.
want to add that honestly, the technology is not the only thing.
Yeah.
I think if we're talking about just the technology layer, like, like builders around a certain technology, it's like, yeah, we could talk about that, but there's still the other elements, the human elements that keep
Mm,
ecosystems and communities together.
mm.
But that is often overlooked.
When you say human elements, what does that mean exactly? And have you ever had an issue come up and how do you resolve those? Because I imagine in human elements, there will be conflict. Even if you have shared values, sometimes maybe somebody's having a bad day. So how do you like reinforce or enforce or maybe hold things accountable if those values get broken?
Yeah. We don't really like punish. We don't punish. We more of like reward. We reward the values. If somebody
Mm.
is being very collaborative, we'll say like, "Oh my gosh, this is what this is how they helped the other person out." In our newsletter, we have like, okay, community highlights. What wins did you have, or what did you learn? What did you get out of the community? And then even the stories that other people share and the conversations they have, they reinforce each other because
Mm.
those values, if they experience the right values and they like it, they share those values to other people.
Yeah.
It becomes like a network. But if somebody
Yes.
violates it, in a way, like we don't really have to enforce it. It's more of a, they probably won't find the rooms and the initiatives we create for them. They'll weed themselves out. But if we have to step in, we'll set the person aside and say like, hey, just to let you know that what you're doing is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
We value this. Do you think maybe we could fix it? So we do that like privately.
Mm-hmm.
And then next time we see that person out publicly and we don't say like, oh, we don't like you. It's more of a, if they show a shared value, we'll compliment them on that shared value. So the reward is a reward system.
One can say that maybe this is just Canada. You know how Canadians are. They're so polite. Like, do you feel like it could be a Canadian thing, or do you think that this could be upheld in like Silicon Valley, where people are like, ah, sorry, that's my interpretation of the Silicon Valley person.
Honestly, I think it could happen in Silicon Valley. I think whenever you're starting a community or starting an ecosystem, it starts with you and it starts with the partner or the person you want to work with who also shares similar values as you coming in. And then it grows when you both invite other people who are similar in. Eventually, it's just like word of mouth, people finding their people who share their similar values. And eventually, ideally, it grows big enough to the point where you have a mass of that momentum and huge group of people who are similar to the people who founded it.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're just inviting more people, like-minded people.
If the most interesting innovation is happening in communities rather than corporations, what do you think that says about the future of big tech?
Big tech is now going to have to pay attention to people and those who are actually building it a little bit more. They need to work on building the trust of these grassroots style meetups.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about like trust building. They're going to have to really work on that.
Why do you think they'll have to work on that?
Because I noticed that in some meetups, in some events, if there's a big corporate representation there where builders feel like they're being sold to, they're not going to enjoy it.
Hmm.
Because it's a very
Interesting.
one-sided conversation in these events. Builders want to be able to contribute and, share and see how it really applies to them and feel like they're part of it. But if they feel like they're just being talked at by,
Mm-hmm.
here's a presentation on how you build a workflow using this tool, download it now, sign up now. Why would you come to an event to listen to a commercial or a YouTube video?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, future of like corporations, if they really do want to be, in the bleeding edge, they need to find a way to be human again.
Got it. And so it sounds like they need to center the people that also attend their events, enabling those people to do probably most of the speaking or contributing, and them
Hmm.
taking more of a learning perspective from these people who will be using
Yeah.
their products, selling their products,
Yeah.
advertising their products, building for their products,
Yeah.
rather than them coming in and just kind of talking about themselves and then just leaving, but that
Yeah.
people don't feel seen, don't know why they should invest. Yeah.
Here's a better role. If companies could position themselves as facilitators, I think that would be much better.
Mm. Love that. Yes, I do agree with that. That I think hits two birds with one stone.
Hmm.
And I love that you made that distinction earlier of the difference between an event and a community.
Some events that I attended in San Francisco, I go because I don't have to pay for dinner. I
Yeah,
just come in for the free food and free
yeah,
drinks, and I will
yeah.
listen, and then I will leave.
Yes, exactly. Which is not even what they want in the end goal. It's not,
Mm,
yeah, low bang for your buck.
exactly.
Okay. I met you when you were an XR entrepreneur. You had several startups, and I remember you sold one as well. And you were building really, really great apps and experiences that I thought were really game changing for the industry. And I know you're still involved in a VR startup now, but I'm curious now that you're also building communities, where do you feel like it's more impactful than building a startup, or do you feel like it's similar?
Communities and ecosystems are more impactful because you could bring your authentic self to them.
Mm,
Whereas, at least for me, what I felt with startups, I couldn't bring my
mm.
authentic self because my authentic self might be a little too much. I might be a little too passionate. I might be a little too excited, or might be a little too nice. If I'm too nice, sometimes I'll be viewed as like you don't take things too seriously, or you're going to be a pushover, or you don't know much. I'm like, What? Where did that come from?"
I do feel like men are allowed to have a lot more range in how they show up and talk about their startups. And, they could be aggressive and loud and passionate. People are like, oh, wow, he's great. He's passionate. And then for a woman doing the same thing, then it's like distracting for them.
You know what's interesting? Because I pay attention to the values and personalities more rather than like what
Mhm.
they, what the demographics are. It's gone so much easier for me to see
Yeah.
everybody as like, oh, if you're being too aggressive, that means you're just an aggressive person in general.
Of
It
course.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though, like, we can see that, like, the world is different. The world doesn't always see us, unfortunately. Like, it is a real thing.
Yeah.
Statistically, women are going to have a harder time being able to show up as themselves authentically when they're having a startup. Whereas for men, that might not be as hard. I'm not saying
Hmm.
that that's always the case. You do have to show up in a way that builds confidence, no matter what. That's the way you optimize your personality for. How do I drive the most confidence in investors? And so you're always doing a performance. And so I can totally see that. Whereas it sounds like in building a community, it's not about performing, it's about just living in the passion
Although I
with the
do
other people.
sometimes incorporate a little bit of my musical theater and performance background into some of the events.
Yeah.
I
Fair
do,
enough.
I
Yeah.
do. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Like hackathons,
But
like
that's
how to
good.
bring the energy up. You're like, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah."
But you enjoy that. That's part of your
I do. I
personality.
do.
Yeah. If anything, that's more of an expanded part of you that you
Yes.
probably couldn't bring into the startup world, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. The play is more
Yes.
accepting in communities than it is for startups.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so a lot of people assume innovation happens inside of big tech companies, but in your experience, how much do you think actually starts in the small builder communities?
I'd say a lot. A lot happens in the builder communities because I think it goes with the knowledge sharing, the support. If you're working in a big organization, some of them they have innovation labs. But they stay in the innovation labs. A lot of that
Mm,
happens there. But like if you go to the hackathons, you go to the meetups or whatnot, that's where they start like challenging each other because everybody's coming from a different place. They work in different places. They're part of different communities. And the mashup, that's what creates innovation, you know? Like
mhm.
here's an example. At the Hacker House, one of the residents was working on a journaling app. It was really cool, but he's not a daily journaler, and he was building it, making initial iterations on it based on what he knows and what he is hearing. Me being a avid journaler, like two other residents were also very avid journalers, and our feedback was like, well, I journal because of this. This is how I got started. Here are my habits. This is the reason why I prefer this design over this design. And this is what will motivate me. Here's how I would like to be gamified. Because of that mashup, it helped make his product a lot better and
Yeah.
more for actual journalers. And so
Mm,
he was incorporating like his like experience and his research in all of that and building this app. But we also came in and there you go, innovation. Analog
mm.
hobby, digital hobby, mashed.
I love that. Okay. You mentioned earlier how you participated in a few hacker houses that didn't work. Obviously, we've both been in that situation. I don't think I've ever participated in a hacker house actually, but I have seen hacker houses not work. Not the ones that you were in,
Mhm.
in the
Yeah.
XR space for sure. And you see public conflicts between founders on Twitter or back and forth
Mhm.
online, and,
Yeah.
and you see people who post on talking about how they felt they experienced harmful experiences and didn't feel like they were supported as underrepresented people in the space or all that. So I'm curious for you, what do you feel like are the biggest mistakes people make when they try to create these spaces?
Yeah. So context, I've lived in probably at least 4 hacker houses
Oh wow.
and been to a few more and experienced a few more. So I'm always observing like, oh, interesting. How does this work? How does that work? I feel like for some people, when they build a hacker house, they focus too much on the technology and the knowledge of people
Mm,
and less on personalities, shared values, and the giving back.
Mm.
to the house and helping
Mm.
it work and function. They underestimate the value of just life skills. Cooking, cleaning, who's going to get the groceries? Who's going to throw out the garbage? I lived in a sorority house when I was at
Yeah.
UCLA. There were 50 women living in that house. In a sorority house, we're all students. We're all busy. We're
Mhm.
very busy. We have classes. We have student organizations. Like, who is going to take out the garbage? Who's going to cook? Who's going to clean? Who's going to like do all these things? We had a house manager who paid the bills, helped us like stay logistically smooth. We had a caterer who would come in and serve us dinner Monday to Friday. So we don't have to think about that or take care of it, or even the dishes. We just put it in the dishwasher because we had someone to help us with the house stuff.
Mm.
But when it comes to hacker houses, I don't think they think about that side of logistics. They
Mm.
focus a lot more on the products that they're building and the technology and how massive that impact is. They're thinking globally, less locally. And when that happens, what you get is maybe there are conflicts of, why are there too many dishes in the sink? Why did
Mm.
nobody take out the dishes from the dishwasher? Why does the house start smelling like garbage? Like those things, they seem so unimportant to the change makers and the people who want to provide some big impact, that all of a sudden those little, seemingly trivial things will start, adding
Yeah, they
up.
get bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So it's like you said, the human part, making sure that the
The life
environment is
skills.
set up, is
Hmm.
clean, not just the technology, but also like the environment. That's so real. Um, what do the people who show up to build every week have in common psychologically?
They are internally motivated. They are intellectually honest. They make great friends. What I learned when I was a retail management intern once upon a time, that the way to retain employees is for them to make friends. So when these people come to most of our events, it's because they probably made at least two friends. They come back because they feel like they belong. This is their community. This is their space. This is their people. It's like the a part of their identity,
Yeah.
actually. Like,
So do you think introverts are excluded from this? Do you see a difference between?
no, it doesn't make a
Okay.
difference.
Okay.
Introverts, they're just when somebody says introvert, it doesn't mean that they don't want to make friends. It means that there's a certain type of quality of friends that they're looking for. And
Oh, I love
eventually,
that.
sometimes if you like break that initial like barrier and they feel comfortable, then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I'm building the coolest things. Like all of a sudden they wake up. And we've seen that happen. Some people get super like in the zone. They come in and they're not talking to anybody. Like so every Sunday, uh there's Builder Sundays at the Shopify office here in Ottawa.
Mm.
We pretty much like bring our entire AGI Ventures like community there. It's basically co-hacking, but on Sundays, to
Mm.
present their demos. So when someone asks like, oh, like, how did you hear about this? They'll say, oh, I'm from AGI Ventures. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, that conversation with somebody who's not part of our community will go like, oh yeah, you should join in Discord. Come hang out with us. Oh,
It's like
it's
a
more of
safe
like the
space.
exactly. It's a safe space, welcoming.
It's a safety, and then they already know that they have a shared. Because I'm as an introvert, this is what I can relate to.
Actually, you might
Yeah.
have liked last last Sunday during Builder Sunday, somebody was using, I think, Claude Code or something to create a VR app using his Apple Vision Pro, and
Wow.
made like an AR like basketball game in a few
Yeah.
minutes right before the presentation time.
Wow. Have you tried the other tools for making apps? Like, do you feel like Cloud Code is the best one?
Yeah. So there are definitely other tools and they all have
Okay.
different skill levels. I use Lovable, I've used Bolt. I haven't used V0 yet, but a lot of people have and they like it. I felt like with my experience with those entry level tools, I eventually get to the point where I build it enough and then there's a blocker. Like
Mm.
I go into this recurring cycle of fix this error. Oh, it's fixed. No, it's not. Fix it again. It is fixed. No, it's not. I'm like, okay, this is annoying.
Yeah, endless loop. What is it called? The doom loop?
Yeah.
There's a name for it.
And then I end up going to
Mhm.
a different tool or end up like dropping this project because I didn't want to finish it that badly. So I eventually moved into, like I might use Cursor. There are some like Cursor ambassadors within our ecosystem too. So we have that help. these are like mentors who are in our community ready to help people unblock and get started, which is amazing. So
Mm,
there's a lot of that support. Our team, we make Claude skills that help us run
mm.
efficiently. And then OpenAI, I used to be super, super active in that. I would copy and paste, like, I'm working on this project. What do I do? I have my flow. But then now, because of Claude skills and the AGI Ventures having like a bunch of skills already made specifically from our previous experiences and our knowledge in Claude Code. And I won't be able to use that in OpenAI. So that's the reason why I am
Ah, okay.
in Claude Code.
It's
It's
like,
just like the
yeah,
evolution of workflows and tools.
yes, got it. Yeah, you've already went really deep there, so that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. But it's not like it's one is better than the other. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
It's preferences, kind of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, and then okay, so then thank you. That's very helpful. Nelda, thank you for joining.